Earlier, I spoke with Daniel Kurtzer, former U.S. ambassador to Egypt during the Clinton administration. Earlier in his career, he was a junior officer stationed in Egypt when Anwar Sadat was assassinated in 1981. I began by asking him how the violence back then compared to the upheaval we're seeing today.
Well, in 1981, when Sadat was assassinated by essentially Muslim extremists, the military was firmly in control behind the scenes of Sadat's government and used that occasion to really effect a very strong clampdown on the Brotherhood and other extremist elements. Since the 1952 revolution, there's been this tension between the Brotherhood and the military, with the military sometimes allowing the Brotherhood some room to breathe and sometimes not. So the 81 period was a moment when the Brotherhood or some extremists within the Brotherhood took a shot at the president, and it rebounded tremendously against them. What you have now is a very different situation where the Brotherhood was able to come out from underground, contested an election, won that election, and proved to be totally inept at governing, and showed its real face to the Egyptian public, a face that promised the Islamicization of much of Egyptian society, to a point where some 20 million people came out on the streets in late June, forcing the military to intervene.
I was talking to someone in the Middle East a little over a year ago, and they were saying, the people in Egypt have shown a capacity to go to the square, protest, and demand a new government. But what if they don't like this next government? Will they go to the square and demand a new government? And is this the cycle we're going to be in? Do you think that is the cycle we're in?
Well, I think we're in the middle of that cycle now. The question is whether there's anything that can be done to break it. And I think the person you were speaking to was exactly right. There's a large body of people in Egypt who know what they don't want, and they now have the means through social media to communicate and to mobilize large demonstrations. But as we saw over the last year and a half, 2 years, they've been unable to form a coherent alternative agenda. They were unable to really contest the last elections. And right now, there is no consensus among that opposition about what to do proactively.
Ambassador, you were stationed in Cairo. If you were there today and President Obama were to pick up the phone and say, "What should I do?" what would you tell him?
Well, frankly, I think the administration has been doing probably about as much as it can do, and I would tell the president to continue on the course of very quiet dialogue with the military to establish a timeline for constitutional reform, a timeline for elections, and as inclusive a process as possible. It may be hard after today, but that still has to be the goal. I would think that we should not threaten to cut off aid to the military. We still have strategic interests, but I think the military needs to hear that it doesn't have a blank check, that there are limits to what we will be able to withstand in terms of our own values and interests, as well as our own domestic opinion.